Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingser. We are here to inspire and empower leaders of the hospitality and restaurant industry to unleash the true potential of their organization. In today's podcast, I'm excited to be joined by Ben Heath, who is the founder and COO of the Isle of Man restaurant and hospitality group Harbour Lights. We sat down with Ben to talk about leadership, the industry, the challenge around operating on an island, and how to reinvent a family business. Grab headphones, snacks and drinks, and enjoy. Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast, Ben.
Thank you.
It's a great pleasure to have you here, and we are sitting in the Sefton on the Isle of Man in Douglas.
It's lovely to have you here. It's like your second or third time over to the island, I think, so we've decided to let you back, which is good.
Yeah, and you even want to do a couple of things with me, which is actually quite insane. But I wanted you to get on the podcast because you are not like the average restaurant group. You are, first of all, you operate on the Isle of Man, and then you have a long family history as well. A
long family history. I mean, we're the core brand that we work is 27 years old this year, so I've worked in that man and boy. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. The Isle of Man's quite a unique space for food and beverage and all of the challenges that come with operating on an island. But yeah, it's been quite a journey.
So the restaurant group you're part of called Harbour Lights.
Yeah,
and there's a couple of other brands underneath that umbrella as well.
That's right. So we kind of went through a transformational phase in the last 18 months, 2 years. The core brand, Harbour Lights Cafe and Restaurant, which started with one location 27 years ago, grew up to 7 at its peak on the island. Last year we went through some changes, looking at which part of the businesses were making money and which part of the businesses weren't making money, freed some of that up and took some investment into the company, and that let us be creative again and try out some new brands, which was very freeing experience for us to be able to go out and try some new projects and work with some new people and just take a look at the business and see what it needed to be in 2019 really.
Yeah, and I guess even though you take an investment, you're still a family-run business.
That's right. I mean, family at the heart of it, really. Really, my dad's idea to run what started as a family dining around the afternoon tea space was the core product. That was the original idea, and how it spread out into an all-day dining experience. But yeah, absolutely a family business from day one, and those lessons, hard learnt, some of them, inform definitely what we do every day.
Today you have 3 brands. You have the Sefton,
which
is a brasserie in a hotel.
That's right.
And you have the Fishery.
We're Fishery, which is our new kind of gourmet fish and chip concept.
Yeah.
And we have Sir Norman's as well, which is, again, based in a hotel location, which is bar dining, bar space, which comes from, obviously, Sir Norman's. Isle of Man's famous for Norman wisdom, so that's where that concept comes from as well.
How is it then to be an operator on the Isle of Man, and how do you actually drive a food and beverage business forward? Because many maybe have heard of the Isle of Man but never been here.
Yeah.
Again, so putting that in perspective as well, if you can get a bit of context.
I mean, it's a challenging food and beverage environment. There's definitely opportunities. I mean, we're lucky in the perspective that, we don't have the competition base of the large chains. So really we have, up until recently, we had McDonald's and KFC. KFC have actually exited. So really the only food and beverage brand that you would know outside the coffee chains for food would be McDonald's. Everything else is a series of independent. There's definite potential from that point of view. Our struggles are the same as everybody in the UK, but just perhaps a little bit more, amplified, I would say. So staffing particularly is probably our number one challenge. We suffer from just not enough people on the island. That's not just within the hospitality sector, that's just in general. And shortage of suppliers as well, which means that our food costs we actually sit at around 15 to 20% higher food costs than the UK as well. So how we remain competitive within that market and how we attract new members into our team, and keep customer service, because that's very much at the heart of what we do. It's certainly that what we're known for on the island. So how we recruit those younger team members and new team members in, whilst all the time maintaining the standards. And the bigger you get, obviously the more people you need, and the bigger that challenge is.
So if you look at the demographic of the island, and I don't think we insult anyone saying that is an older demographic.
Yeah, so we're technically what's known as a hyper-aged population. So we have, I think, either the 3rd or the 4th oldest general population in the world by percentage. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for attracting customers into the restaurants, but obviously it's a recruitment challenge as well. We have the highest population of people over 80 within the European Union. So what that means in practice is that a large percentage of our population actually don't leave the house every day. So we need to try and find, new ways in order to service them from a delivery perspective, which is something that we've expanded into. And try and remain relevant to these people for as long as possible. What's interesting about us is, we were perceived probably as quite a mature brand. I mean, that was something really that we celebrated with the original company, and quite traditional. And that was very much on purpose, because that's not only where the bulk of the population was, but where the money was. And for many years, we chased that pound. I think looking back, we probably chased it for too long, actually, and the need to try and sort of modernize and bring in some more contemporary aspects to it is the real focus of what we've been, because the food and beverage industry, as it has within the UK, I think has changed over here as well, and also where the money's being spent and what section of the population money's being spent into, that's come and been younger, and and the brand has had to change and adapt to meet those needs.
You just mentioned like this challenging in the UK, so we often talk about on the podcast and with people around hospitality and Mavericks called the perfect storm.
Yep.
There's like not much more they can put into this sauce or storm of ingredients, because you have all the fronts fighting. Can you feel that has an overspill as well, and then with all the other uncertainties around economies and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not immune from anything of that. If anything, things tend to hit us a little bit later. So recession, for instance, hit us a little bit later. We had a little bit of a bubble where things weren't too bad for so long. But yeah, absolutely, we are finding it more so here. And as I said, I think it's amplified. For our business, if we had stayed at the size that we were, fundamentally, the numbers don't make sense anymore. I mean, the numbers that we learnt when we learned about running a food and beverage operation, where we set out those percentages and we know that as long as we kept an eye on these things, I mean, that model doesn't exist anymore. One of the key things that we went back to was to look at the rents we were paying, looking to go to the locations. And that was really the aspect of making a meaningful difference, and kind of go, well, at that location, at that rent level, it's just the business is never going to make sense at that. And that in turn meant making brave decisions and saying, at that stage, we're going to go from 7 locations down to 3 locations, but we know we can make those locations work. It was difficult at the time to make those decisions, but the decisions that we made then have put the business on a much more stable footing now. We're not immune from the challenges. They're the same as everybody else is having. We're fortunate in some aspects. On the island, we don't have Uber Eats, we don't have Deliveroo, so we don't have to engage in those kinds of conversations. On the flip side of that is, that route to business is not really an option for us. Delivery for us we would have to own that from start to finish, and we'd have to make those judgments and decisions about whether it would be commercially viable to run that. But food cost in particular is the thing that's had a massive effect, and we've just seen we're extremely limited on suppliers, so we have no supplier competition.
I think you said once to me you have one supplier to go to.
That's right. Certainly for fresh grocer level things that you would go to, one supplier, one choice. We've got an excellent relationship with them. They do sort of everything they can, but naturally, when you haven't got anybody else in the market, it leads to a certain degree of, well, look, this is the price, because they know that there isn't physically anywhere else. Our other option, if we didn't use that supplier, would be to go to Tesco's. That's the other option that genuinely the other option we would have to go and buy a lot of the menu items.
And I guess also that restricts you from a menu point of view again, because I think there's also like when you have a very traditional focused audience, and then you also have only supply, then your menu, how do you create your menus, might be a challenge as well.
It is, and it's as I always say to our culinary teams, I mean the challenge on the island is that for ingredients we all shop at the same shop, so we are buying the same chicken, we are buying the same duck, the same pork, so how we bring value to that has to be perhaps a little bit more creative, because we can't start with the wide range of provenance that perhaps other UK outlets would have to be able to source exclusive products. This is it's become a real restriction and a real issue for us, and we took the step last year to expand into starting to do some importing ourselves. So part of the business strategy was to look at how can we do direct shipping from the UK, how can we have more vertical integration and more control over the supply chain of bringing things into the island, because it was really about, we were at the stage with the suppliers kind of going, right, God, we know what we want to develop, we know what the menu we want to be, we know we need this product for us, and our suppliers were going, it doesn't make commercial sense for us to bring that product in just for you, so it's a hard no. If you want that, you're going to have to go and get it yourself. And that's, basically what we did and we've done. But we're lucky because we've got the infrastructure and we've got the financial footing to be able to go and do that. It also gives us a little bit more flexibility in terms of our pricing, because we can insulate from some of that. And I'm sure you talk about Brexit a lot and, food cost pricing and, what that will do. And, we particularly over here, we see that as a huge issue for us, primarily because actually it's the best excuse in the world for all of our suppliers to put their prices up, even if actually to them the cost is not increasing. It's just a great one to come, cod's gone up 15%, but it's Brexit. Well, has it? Has it actually gone up that much? Because we've got no way to quantify that at the moment, because we have no other suppliers that we can go to in order to qualify it.
Even though if you came over here, you see it's quite green over here. Is there an infrastructure in place locally for sourcing, basic things like potatoes, meat?
Yeah, and a lot of work's been done by the government, and there are some really excellent local suppliers. We use them. Again, cost is high, so we have to be selective, and they have to really add value to menus. So, our philosophy has always been, we don't use local for the sake of using local. It's got to be quality driven. We have some excellent suppliers. We have some suppliers that are good for a small part of the year. There's, it's a very traditional growing window. So potatoes, to your example, we have great potatoes, but probably only for 3 months of the year. They'll try and sell them for 6 months of the year, but we will only use them for 3 months of the year. And for the other times, we're going to need to go off island just to maintain quality, really.
You talked about recruitment as a big issue for your business as well, and that's where everybody talks around now in the UK as well about people.
Yeah.
First of all, because you mentioned Brexit, I think that is a trigger. I also think it's an industry being attractive.
Yeah, it's quite amusing actually, because talking to UK colleagues, people who are operating in businesses, and they talk about recruitment challenges. When we talk about recruitment challenges, it's really a much higher level, I would say. So some partners that we work with in Dublin that set out to open a new store opening, they put some applications out for team members to come in, and they go, it's really, really hard. We put a job advert out and we got 150 applicants come in for it, but we could only recruit 3 or 4 good ones. So that's when people talk about, UK recruitment challenges, is it's really about quality, but they can still, get a decent number of applicants. It is very, very normal and unusual for us to put out a recruitment job advert for frontline staff, so server, shift leader, and receive 0 applications. That is the norm, actually. And really our recruitment strategy would be highly unusual, and that is that, really, if we want to go out and recruit, we have to go and find and actively pitch that person to come in. Our recruitment on the island is completely reversed. So the job board systems that that everybody uses, they're the complete other way around. So if there's somebody within the food and beverage sector that is looking for a new position, they will go on and say, hi, this is my experience, I'm available. And then businesses will pitch for that person. And they'll openly pitch salary, they'll openly pitch conditions and go, why don't you come in to me? I can beat them by £1 an hour, I can come in, I can give you extra, from that perspective. So it's very, very usual for us to have, 0 applications for a job. Brexit's affected that. It's been quite interesting. We, as an island, we struggle with population. Our population's actually decreasing. We run a work permit system on the island, which is a very simple process. It's very easy to get. It's not really that much of a barrier. But we used to find the island would have a certain degree of overspill. So particularly from the northwest, Liverpool, Manchester, that if people were struggling to get jobs in the UK, northwest UK, then they would look at the Isle of Man and they would come over because they could always get jobs, particularly within hospitality. As Brexit, we've seen people lose confidence in coming to the UK. Equally, that has stopped, literally overnight. We don't see any requests for work permits anymore that we used to, and they really were the lifeblood of the hospitality sector over here. So people coming in from Western Eastern Europe, very, very strong work ethic and experience, in customer services, within different countries, but they brought that with them, and we're very, very sorry to lose that. The industry's really hurt, certainly since that's coming in. I don't see that, unfortunately, getting better. There was an internal joke we had inside is, every year we say, well, look, it can't get any worse than it is at the moment from a recruiting position. And every year it seems to get a little bit harder in one way or the other. The challenge is really it's now at the stage where it's starting to inform what investment decisions we start to make. So we have 2 brands slated, 2 new brands to open this year. Certainly one of them we will shelve until next year. And we're having internal conversations at the moment about, is now the right time? Can we open this? Can we deliver it to the standard that we want to deliver it? And can we keep the lights on? Can we keep people in the building enough to keep it open and deliver what we want to do? So it's really challenging, really challenging.
Do you think that's what's coming down the line for the UK? I actually heard about larger operators not being able to open on some days in some locations because it actually didn't have the staffing as well.
I totally
and the early signs, but that's in principle what you're saying as well. That's the worst case scenario just because of the lack of hands.
Yeah, I totally believe that's a case. I mean, it's a hard realization, but I mean, we have been in several times this year where we have opened knowing that we don't have enough people on the floor to deliver the standard of service that we would want to deliver. And it's a really hard business decision. And I completely understand from a customer perspective that they're not interested in that. They come out, they expect the service they expect, and they deserve that. They're paying money for it. But as an operator, it's a really tough situation to be in when you've got the option of going, do we cancel the day and we close, and we close everybody, or do we do the very best that we can and support it with management, which we do frequently, but honestly, there are times where we've opened and gone, we don't have enough people on the floor to deliver the standard that we would want to. And I see that more and more. I see that getting more and more likely and harder. As we know, when we don't staff it properly, that's when things go wrong. And the customer, obviously, when we get it wrong, we want them to tell us, and and they do. The perspective sometimes is that you've tried to understaff in order to cut costs. We never do that. That's something that we've never done. That's not an area that we actively target to try and save money, because it comes back to bite us. But from a management perspective, it goes against kind of everything that you set out in your strategy and what your beliefs are about customer service. But ultimately, sometimes I don't have the right amount of people on the floor.
So just to understand again, people which think this sounds like a bit crazy, but again, how many inhabitants is there in Isle of Man?
89,000.
Yeah, how many is active in the workforce of those?
About 22.
So that's already, if you do that calculation quickly, you can say that's not much.
And I get that it kind of sounds a little extreme. They're kind of going, look, they must be able to find people, but genuinely, it is a real... and I'm sure there are communities within the UK actually that are the same, and islands in particular are a challenge. I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast, I always say this to our HR team, and the reality is that for a young person coming into the industry now, there are easier ways to earn your living, right? I mean, it's a tough job. It's people call it a calling, but you genuinely have to love. And there are people, we have many of them in the organisation, which I'm very grateful for, that do love it. As a school leaver, somebody looking at the coming into the sector, it's a tough job. I mean, it's demanding. It's you have to really be engaged, and it asks ultimately, as I say to our team all the time, we ask a lot of our team. We ask long hours. We'll ask on sociable hours. There's easier ways to earn your money, and when you've already have every sector here has a recruiting challenge. Trying to attract people into hospitality is another level of complexity. And the plus side, as I see it, is certainly from us as an employer, it's really called on us to try and be as attractive as forget about just a hospitality employer, as attractive an employer as we possibly can be. So to try and throw off some of the kind of stigma about working in the hospitality industry, and because when it's good, it's great. And if you're that kind of person, you wouldn't do anything else. But it's really focused us on being, how do we make coming to work for Harbour Lights as attractive a proposition as we possibly can? And we've sort of seen all sorts of benefits on the back of that, which I'm very proud of. It's been a good focusing point for us.
I remember we discussed the opportunity at some point to go to the UK and see if you can attract managers that has done maybe the London thing, hit the wall, need a new start, and as you said, we're going to offer them similar salaries, and then the quality of life.
That's it.
Because the quality of life here is amazing. It's a different speed. People are more friendlier than in London.
They are certainly that.
As soon as you land in the airport, you know you are in a different place, that's for sure. And it's the only place I've arrived. Actually, I arrived today, and Granion, your head of HR, was standing there with a sign, "Welcome, Hospitality Mavericks," and Michael. And that's the first time ever I got a.
We're a friendly bunch.
Like
we're a friendly bunch. But
coming back to the question, actually, was that we talked about getting potential talent, core talent to help run the business as you scale up, because I guess that's the capability challenge. Having the management infrastructure in place. You tried that, but that hasn't really.
We tried it. We continue to try it. Again, it's quite a specific ask. I like to think we're an attractive group to work for, in the sense that we're small. Somebody would be joining a team where they could affect a difference. They really could. They're working across multiple brands. We've got quite a diverse set of brands, so you get a bit of experience with absolutely everything. And my kind of thought was, well, people move on in their lives. If somebody's in London at the moment and they do have a family, but want to stay within the industry, this is the perfect place to do it, because you get the best. You really do get the best. I mean, this is a fantastic place to bring up children. To enjoy a much, I would like to think, a higher quality of life-work balance. But yeah, I haven't been able to convince anybody over the water yet. We continue to try.
If you look at where you are now, you said you went from 7 units down to 3, and you're working on new concepts. What do you think is, besides recruitment, is probably in your top 3 challenges as you go forward and want to develop the group? You're not planning standing still. You actually want to move forward.
We want to move forward. We have come from a background very much of full service, large menu, full service dining experiences. As we respond to food costs and service costs and and all of the above, we need to be very much focused on what the food offering will be. So our next kind of 2 or 3 concepts will be, very, very pared down. They'll be very specific. I've set the team internal challenges that, that both of the next concepts we do will be 10 menu items or less. Because we can then enjoy, or the plan is to try and, honestly, to de-skill. That's the first one, to be able to concentrate on customer experience, but actually de-skill the full service element of it. But also to try and, we really need to be disciplined about food costing. Our Sefton location, which is the full-scale brasserie, we're open 365 days a year, 10 till 10 every day. When I look at the number of SKUs on that menu breakdown at the moment, it's vast, and it grows every day despite my best efforts. It's really discipline in terms of what these next concepts will be. I talked in the intro about, there are opportunities here. We see trends within the UK. We see kind of proven concepts within the UK that have done very well. They haven't been done here yet. So it's about, picking which of those will work on the island, and then kind of exploring them and putting our own twist on how we do them.
So how do you go about finding out what the next thing is for you guys, and where do you go for inspiration? London is the obvious choice, London, New York, but it's things, I guess the things, if you took them here, it wouldn't work.
A great example of that is sushi. I mean, a couple of people have tried sushi on the island. Ironically, considering that we're surrounded by fish, we have some very good fish, but the rest of it mostly is imported. We have very few lines that we can actually catch locally. So we have huge shipping issues around bringing in fresh, very, very sushi grade fresh fish. So a couple of concepts I've tried, but it's just not a concept that is ever going to work here. It's a reach too far. So yeah, I mean, with the other side of the business, I'm in London talking with partners and things like that a fair amount. But I think we actually look more towards the northwest actually as inspiration. So Liverpool, Manchester, York, around those, to see what concepts are sitting well within those perhaps smaller communities, not even the big cities, but outside, and see, take inspiration from those. We are 89,000 population, so we need to be mindful of that in terms of trying to hit and be as responsive to as many people as we can within that community. We're not looking at a community of 1 million, 2 million, where you can afford to be a little bit more niche. So, firm, well thought through concepts that are going to hit as many people as possible.
So when you go to, because you can say the food scene in Liverpool, York and Manchester have really exploded the last 4 or 5 years, and we did a trip in Liverpool, I think it was last summer as well, and we can see that like it's a new level. I guess also having, you need to be quite specific about what works with your demographic again as well, beside, looking what works in those cities, because there are some things that will work in a metropolitan city like Manchester would not work in the Isle of Man or even in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Are there any big operators you're looking at and thinking that you can learn something from, or you're picking and choosing from?
No, I mean, I actually think it's the other end of things. I mean, we're looking very much at the independents, actually, looking at what the independents are doing in the space. Because from our investment structure, we have to be realistic about return on the number of people we physically have here, the number of, and what percentage of that are regularly dine out. And, those numbers start to shrink quite small quite quickly. Certainly, probably if you were looking at them as a business plan in the UK, you would probably pack up shop and go and find a different area with more people in it, honestly. Again, I'm going to talk a lot about discipline, but being disciplined about concepts. So with the amount that we are investing, the reason that the independent space is more interesting to us is because we can look at, what does an investment of 100, 150,000 into a concept, and what does that concept then return? On the journey to break even, we certainly see more parity and more interest coming from the smaller operators, where they've got an idea and they've gone at it in a bit more of a quick and dirty style. Let's get something open. Let's try a concept. Let's see how the public respond to it, and then we learn lessons from that and go, what can we lift back over to here.
Do you think that we're coming into an era again where being independent, because of, I know it's a tough time, but also you had never had as many tools as you can today from, technology give you a tool, that infrastructure is more in place. There's some things that's easier than there was when my mom and dad ran down.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I guess that you can act big as small operator. If you do well on TripAdvisor, you can use that as a branding thing. So suddenly there's more transparency. So it's not, people trusted the big brands before.
Yep.
But now they've actually lost trust in them, but they now can trust the individual operator. And do you see that rise coming as well? And that's actually an advantage suddenly. I don't know how much an advantage on the Isle of Man, but definitely I see those signs in the UK where more and more business goes to the individual brand that does really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think the playing field is leveled for sure. Certainly within small communities. I mean, there is now a clear route from a marketing perspective of, a small independent can hold their own against a multinational, for instance. And actually, I think you get, by being an independent, you get quite a bit more for free now, because this question of legitimacy, how legitimate is your brand, how legitimate is your offering? There's definitely been a turn away from anything that is too slick, that is too polished, which we see from the larger brands. People want now real dining experiences. They want it to be authentic, that they want to know where the food has come from. Provenance has been building obviously for the last couple of years, and I think that's less now about the name of the farm where the produce come through. I think to a certain degree people are over that, but they want to know it's recipe driven. What's the story? This is becoming more and more important, and that's really an area that the independents can go out and really make some noise about. Going back to your other question, with regards to the technology aspect, we as a group, we always invested heavily into technology. So 27 years ago, we were probably one of the first groups on the island to put a fully digital POS system in when everybody else was still using tills. We were the first group that I know of to move our rotors to an online cloud-based system. We were certainly from an island perspective very much ahead of the vouchering discount trend, and we got out of it at the right time as well. We made those investments internally, and it was really down to the fact of the family business where everybody does everything. I mean, we took it as a point of pride that we engaged with as few external organisations as we possibly can. So we ran payroll internally, we ran accounts internally, we ran marketing internally, by which I mean we ran it between the family, which is myself, my mum and my dad. That's it. We were very, very careful about any external organisation that we went to spend money with, because ultimately we were trying to drive as much of that as we possibly could. That meant going out and spending money on different systems and often kind of trying them out really before they were quite ready. Those lessons have served us very, very well. We're a very digital business now from the perspective of we live in cloud POS. We have one software package that really drives the business from a costing perspective. We have complete transparency across the group. So anybody coming into the business, a daily server knows what we're trying to do that day. They know what we're spending on wages that day. I feel very passionately about not trying to shield that information from the team. They need to know what the business is generating, and they need to know what the expectations are from everybody, and that's right the way through the team. That's served us well.
Technology, is that helping you a bit with the challenge around having capabilities or resources in a way? Have you seen that have given you saved a bit of time there and automating things and making decisions quicker, or what is the specific thing technology has given you besides transparency?
I think it's helped us with accountability as much as anything. It's given people the tools in order to make the right decisions more often. We don't get it right all the time. Nobody does. We make mistakes, but we're making now informed decisions. I still go in and speak to a lot of food and beverage operators where there's the amount of guessing that's involved in how they build a rota, how they set budgets, how they do their food cost planning. We're the first business on the island to do, we do all digital ordering now, so we only deal digitally with all of our suppliers. For our suppliers, that was quite a journey, but it's something that we've been very passionate about getting them on board with for some time now. And, it's areas like that we're starting to see some decent drops within food costs, because our culinary team are more accountable when they're going through their order list, and they can actually generate a costed order before it's put through to the supplier. There's a real number against something, rather than going, we're going to have 3 boxes of that, or 2. If you can't put a number next to that, then that information is irrelevant. How much efficiency it's brought, I don't know, because we're a people-led business at the end of the day. We still need the right people in the right places at the right time, and as many of them as we can get.
Coming back to, if you could take, of these challenges, food costs, recruitment, population challenge, development concept, if one of those you just could, erase overnight.
Yeah.
The magic one.
Yeah.
Which one would that be then?
Recruitment. Yeah, that's what we spend the majority of our time discussing internally. It's the biggest risk that we carry on a day-to-day basis, that we are so reliant on so many fantastic key members of our team. And I know every business is to a certain degree, but we have so little redundancy within the staffing system for key individuals that one person going within the group really does actually genuinely jeopardize whether we can open for a service on that evening. We could open and stumble through, but I would know that person coming out of the organisation, we wouldn't fundamentally be able to deliver the customer services standards that we would want to do. I could solve that one. If you've got any ideas, that would be just...
lots of ideas. We have lots to discuss the next couple of days. So I could ask you the first question. That's part of the solution. Why should I join you?
Yeah, as I said, we have really focused the organisation on how do we become attractive to employers. How do we attract particularly young people actually into the, Grania, who was our head of people, we really challenged her this year to look at, if I was a recent school graduate, what would get me to come and get excited about working within the hospitality industry. So we look at a balance, first of all. Nobody within the organisation does more than 37.5 hours. That's a standard. We are not interested in people doing 50, 60-hour shifts. That was actually a challenge for some of our kitchen team who have built their more mature ones, who've built their entire career on doing 60 hours a week. We want people to come in, we want them to do their best work, and then we want them to go home and have a bit of a life on the side of it. Development certainly is a part of it, personal and career development. How do we grow people through the organisation? What do they need? Because again, retention is an issue for everybody, but it's vitally important for us, because if we do get hold of somebody and they do have the customer service standards that we want, we try and hang on to them as much as possible. The main thing is, from a management perspective, we're a really small team. All of the management team work in frontline operations. Chris, who is the ops director for the food and beverage group, he is working in operations as we speak. Now that can be from everything. He will go and jump in the sink next to the kitchen porter and bail him out if he needs to. He'll also come and sit in a strategy meeting and talk about what we're going to do from that. But everybody within the management team, myself included, if needs be, they will jump in and clear tables. They will come in and do. I should say as well, it's not walk through and there's a glass, I need to pick that up. up. I mean, I'm talking about going in and if necessary doing an 8-hour shift in order to support somebody so they can have time off if they need it. And honestly, that's hard sometimes. It's difficult to not have that line between head office, I mean, I hate that term, but to have that kind of corporate line and the operations line, because it's so far away from everything that we've ever done.
Probably wouldn't work as well.
No, I mean, it's hard because as you get larger, there is it's an administrative monster that needs to be taken care of as well. I mean, that becomes somebody's job. We try and make sure that everybody in the organisation has some kind of customer interaction. They have an interaction regularly with the person that actually pays their salary. And I find that to be, the most important thing, that we don't have this distance between, the customers pay for everything. I mean, they're the fuel of the business. Not have that detachment from them and this head office idea.
I think that's very important, and that's what's gone wrong in many big businesses. And I know there's coming up an event here in the islands called TT. It's a big motorcycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your population grows with
doubles.
The doubles over 2 weeks.
Over 2 weeks, so another 90,000 people arrive.
And you hit sales numbers like you would do in some London locations.
Yeah, I mean we'll do 400, 500x in ridiculous. Yeah,
and you will need all hands on decks and these things, and that's where you bring everything together, I guess, as well.
We describe it as it's like going to war slightly. I mean, it's just a matter of jumping on and hanging on until the end of it. It's a massive strain on the team for no other reason than there's very little ramp up to it. There's very little preparation. You literally, it's like jumping off the edge of a cliff. It goes from as it is now. You've flown in today. I mean, we're kind of in just coming into the season now, so it's pretty good. There's people around, there's people engaged, and they want to go out and eat. But then we suddenly go to hundreds and hundreds of covers in all of the locations every day. So the team don't get any time to acclimatise. So they literally, the light
it's
goes
like
on,
and
then it is exactly, and then they just come in and trying to gear up for that. From a costing perspective, you have to be very brave because, again, the amount of money that you are pre-committing, relying on these people that they're going to get off the boat. But if you don't do it, you won't have it. That said, the team love it. It's a fantastic atmosphere, and it's a very, very unique experience. I've not seen anything like it all over the world that I've been,
Oh, and you can see the whole island is centered around it all year round. That's
the economy's built around it.
Built around it. So
those 2 weeks.
It has to be seen in a way. So, personally, who is your heroes? Who inspires you in moving you forward and leading the team in the right direction?
I mean, it has to obviously be, my father. I mean, the dynamic has changed now. I mean, my parents are and have been, sort of trying to retire, or they've been telling me they've been trying to retire for the last, probably 5 years now. I mean, I can't quite get them to exit the business. We are seeing some transitioning, and I think what's interesting is as the roles change, as I sort of take on the role that my father used to take on, I hear his words coming out of my mouth every single day, and other people in the organisation have who I've worked with for a long time. Our fantastic ops manager, Chris, he stepped into the role that I used to play. He really is the brains and the thought behind the concept, and really instilling the customer focus aspect of it. The whole business is built on the customer aspect. That really informs every decision that we make at every level of the organisation. I had that drilled into me since I was 10 years old when I started in the restaurant. So from that perspective, he in all aspects of the business really informs every decision that we make. With wider industry, there's lots of exciting things happening, within the industry at the moment. I'm a massive McDonald's fan. Honestly, from that as a background of an operations guy, I think you can't help but love that, and to see the transformation actually that they've gone on in terms of their, without having any inside knowledge about it actually, but from, even more interesting from an outsider perspective, how they've restructured that business from a delivery perspective is fascinating to me and how you do that on that scale. Outside of that, we find inspiration every day. But as I said, the majority of it is done through, really cool, great little independents that I stumble across. I was lucky enough to be in China last week and saw the best donut concept I have ever seen. I mean, you wouldn't think there was much more to do within the donut space that was original, but this concept was, absolutely incredible. They've just sort of thrown away all of the rules and rethought it, and so we find inspiration, every day through lots of
you also
things.
sent a picture of a very large insect to me. I thought that was the next concept you were going ahead with. Because we're going to run out of meat at some point.
We're going to run out of meat. I don't know whether the Isle of Man is perhaps the first place to try it, but I don't know. I might be wrong. Street food concept. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Yeah, we're going to run out of meat. It's going to be.
It's the closest to vegan you can get with meat, I think. The last question we always ask people on the podcast is that if you had to give one advice to somebody in the industry, what would that be? Or maybe it could be somebody coming into the industry.
We joked about it actually before we were talking about it, but it is my key bit of advice, and that is to know your numbers. We said that, we joked that's what I was going to say, but really with any business, but particularly within hospitality, it's a tough old business. The numbers, we talked about the challenges and how the challenges have got, harder and harder and harder, but, hospitality is won and lost so quickly, in the blink of an eye. And if you take your eyes off those numbers even for a second, you don't have a business anymore. So even for people coming into the industry, having the fundamental understandings of how those numbers work, what those numbers should be and what they shouldn't be, you're always going to be employable if you can do that. If you can work within and understand a profit and loss within that industry, you're always going to be employable, I feel. I'm sure everybody talks about customer focus, and there is all of that as well, but actually there have been lots of fantastic customer-facing industries that deliver a really, really good product that don't exist anymore because they just didn't have the focus on what keeps the lights on at the end of the day. Yeah. Spoken like a true operator, or a true officer, right?
Profitability trumps everything.
It does.
But it's the way you get to it.
Absolutely.
With that said, thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you.
And when we come here in maybe 3 to 4 years, there will be maybe
the insect concept.
The insect concept or something else going on here on the Isle of Man. So thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you, Ben, for sharing your journey, the Harbour Lights story, and your thoughts on the industry. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, share, subscribe to one of our channels, or best of all, review us on iTunes. Thanks to Let's Talk Video Production for making these podcasts sound beautiful. We hope you enjoyed today's Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingsager. Tune in next time for another industry interview, and in the meantime, find out more about us at hospitalitymavericks.com. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.